All right, we're back. And we're finally getting into part 2, which is book 2 of the third book. I think from now on, I'm just going to call it by their parts instead of the books, because that's confusing for me. If you've made it this far, thank you. Thank you. I'm just looking at my playlist here. I did not anticipate this many hours just to get through the first 200 pages of this book. I'm going to try to get it going quicker, but thank you. Thank you if you have listened to this. And I'll just ask here, if you haven't, please consider subscribing. I'm going to make it all the way through this first book, sort of in this type of format, and then maybe for the next book I will reassess. But please consider subscribing, consider putting a like, and leave a comment if you would like. But either way, I hope that you enjoy this. Now, I want to be kind of full disclosure again. I have read this second part. So this is my reaction. Just having gone through the next 200 pages, you're not getting my reaction right after the fact. But I'm going to try to catch up to then. I want to be able to speak freely, so there will be sort of kind of reactions about things happening in these earlier chapters of the stuff I've already read, but I'm going to try to keep it limited. I don't want to talk about things that will happen later, but it may be worthwhile to you if you are using this as a read-along at some point, maybe to go ahead and read all the way through this second part, which is called Hearthstone, I believe. And then maybe come back. But either way, I hope that you have been enjoying this. I've enjoyed it so much. And wow, I should have expected from Deadhouse Gates how dark these books can get. Really, really, really nutty stuff that is going down. But we'll get to that. Chapter 7 is a beefy one. I have written some points down, so hopefully it'll help me kind of zip along. And then actually the next chapters after that, I think I can do I think I can kind of lump them together. But we are finally going to Capistan. And I was so excited to finally get here. And so excited to finally get to this Panian Domin. And we've learned a lot about them. We come to see some of these head honcho gray swords that are within the city. And they are working with the prince. They have been kind of hired on from another area, I believe, to come over. You're not allowed to have your own personal army. And yet, he's found a loophole, this is kind of his own personal guard, I guess. His hired company to be around him, which basically is the same thing. But it is a loophole that he's found either way. And he is in this constant struggle with the Masked Council. They are talking about how the illegality of what the prince is doing. They are talking about what they should do about the Panian Domin. And this whole second part of the book is basically preparing for this imminent siege that's going to happen. Now, all these different religious groups within Capistan, it's interesting because the way the city is laid out, if you look at the map, it is a city, a walled city, but within that, you can see little pockets of little camps to these different areas or little tribes that had established there. So even though they're within a city, they're still quite divided. But the Masked Council is this collection of all these different religious kind of sects or cults or whatever you want to call them. And they are led or represented by a priest of some sort. I guess you would call him a priest. So when I first looked at the dramatis personae, I didn't notice, I didn't catch on. There's all these Wrath Fenner, Wrath Shatterthrone, Wrath Queen of Dreams, Wrath, Wrath Hood, Wrath Burn. So Wrath is kind of like the name of their title. And I didn't even notice that it was kind of broken apart by their that there was a shadow throne and a priest of this and a priest of this. I didn't really kind of catch on to that. And they are banded together, even though they're all these different groups, they are banded together in the defense against the Panian Domin, who is kind of a priest of something else, or they are a different group, and they are trying to get rid, this Panian Domin is trying to get rid of all these different religious, all this different religious sorcery and religious groups and and convert everyone into the embrace of the Panian Domin. Something I've loved about these books is the way Steven Erikson, in each of these books, has used certain words that you would think maybe at first, he uses repetition, such as embrace. And you remember Munnig, when they were talking about Pale has been embraced by the Malazan Empire, and now they're talking about the embrace of the Panian Domin. And we will see another embrace, another type of embrace. But the way that Steven Erikson uses this repetition of words to kind of guide your thoughts, and it can be something very small. But as you start to pay attention to it, memories is another thing. As you start to kind of pay attention to some of the themes and the repetition that comes through, it's not so much that he's missing, he doesn't have a great vocabulary, because that's not it at all. He that's not at all what I'm trying to say, but he repeats certain themes and things over and over that really drives things home. And sometimes he will use that in one way, especially in the second part of the book. He will use that to describe things that are kind of morally dark and morally good, and anyway, I really have appreciated that from Steven Erikson. As much as I think there are amazing things that happen in these books, I really, really, really love the themes. So anyway, there are these gray swords that we come to meet. There is one, and they are kind of, they work, even though they're gray swords, they are working for Fenner. And one of them has the title of Destriant, which Destriant trumps Wrath, which is the kind of like a title. So there is a priest of Fenner, which is the Wrath Fenner, and then there's this Destriant, who is part of these gray swords with the prince, who they don't know that he's the Destriant, and this seat that he has been vacant for a long time. And he really he's higher up on the hierarchy, and he's keeping it under wraps with the other ones. There's also, and his name is Carnatus, and there's Brucalain, who is the mortal sword of Fenner, and Itkovian, who is the shield anvil. Now, the mortal sword is more like the real head honcho. It sounds like calling the shots, kind of the commander. And then Itkovian is kind of like the field general that is, actually going on these campaigns and the front lines sort of thing. I really like that guy. I like all three of these guys. Now, they get a little kind of a sorcery phone call, I guess, at the start of this chapter. And they're like, all right, let's answer it. We'll pick up. And the orb grows and gets brighter, I guess. And then there's this person sitting within it, kind of a hologram person. And it's Quick Ben, who is rapidly becoming more and more of a favorite of mine if he already wasn't high up there. But he's very, very interesting. Perhaps a post-book tier list of sorts, going through all these characters and also all these different groups like the Segula and the Barghast and the Talanai Mass and what I think about each of those. Perhaps that's in the works. Anyway, they get this orb phone call. And then Quick Ben sort of is like kind of saying, oh, I wasn't meaning to get a hold of you guys. I was trying to get a hold of the Masked Council. I was kind of putting this probe out there to a priest of, I can't recall if it was precisely to a priest of Fenner, but a phone call out to the leadership of Capistan. But I guess we'll talk to you. We can talk to you as well. And this is clearly a front, or at least later on, it's funny that they kind of say, well, problem solved or mission accomplished in getting a hold of the Grey Swords and the representatives of Prince. What's his name again? Prince Jack. Let me find that. Just so I don't have to keep... Oh. Why am I struggling to find that in the... the Dramatis Personae. It doesn't matter. I'll just keep calling the Prince. And they are wanting to talk to them. Quick Ben. And they are... they make an interesting note that the people of Fenner are their temple. So all these different places have their own little temples or places where they do their worship. But within Fenner, the people themselves are the temple rather than a physical edifice or things like that. And also of note, which I found kind of neat and interesting, the other cults, I don't know even what to call them. I don't know if you call them religions or I'll call them cults, I guess. They don't accept women into the art of war, but Fenner doesn't make such distinctions. And remember, Fenner is the one from... He is kind of at the forefront in Deadhouse Gates with Haboric, our boy No Hands Haboric, who worshipped or served him, or perhaps still serves him, depending on where you think there. And anyway, there's women that join in to the art of war under Fenner, and it's sometimes the unwanted second and third born daughters who have been cast out, whatever that means. I didn't know that was going on here, but the unwanted second and third born daughters who become acolytes to Fenner. And they will see some of their recruits, at least one of their recruits, soon with Ikovian. But they also talk about the threat of the Panian Domin and believe that there is about 60,000 coming in on their way. And so also a part of the themes in this book and really in all the books so far is we need to have a temporary alliance to get rid of this threat that we have. And of note, also in this conversation, we get more clues about who Quick Ben is, as when they kind of hang up the phone and they think, well, who is this guy? They say, or one of them says, well, he clearly used to be a priest of Fenner. His knowledge is too precise not to be. And at this moment, I haven't read this whole book yet. So I don't know if I mentioned that, if somehow you are just jumping into this instead of going from the start. I don't know where this goes, but when I first read this, or up to this point, I thought, well, that's cool. That's cool. So he was a priest of Shadow Throne. He was a priest of Fenner. He was a priest of all these things. That gives him access to all these warrants. That is awesome. But we will get to maybe one of the coolest chapters. I think it's in the very next chapter, but we will get more info on that. The truth is even cooler than reality, I guess. So the next scene, we follow Itkovian on this small little mission outside the city to hunt whatever is making all this mayhem out there. And they have this female recruit with them who the recruits learn on the field of battle. She has a couple veterans kind of with her, and the recruits are just expected to follow along as best they can. And they have this big wing formation that they do, that they spread out, and then they can basically collapse onto whatever they need to do. That's just part of their tactics. Now, so cool. One of these Kamal, what are they called? Kachane Chamal hunters, these dino things, show up. And one of them comes in and basically just goes, it's mayhem. They are hacking away at it. It doesn't seem bothered at all. It hacks feed off of horses, chops horses in half. Tons of them die. The only way that they can get rid of it is basically to lasso it in different parts and just pull it apart. Yank it apart with these big, massive war horses or whatever, and just yank it apart. But it left almost none of them alive. Like, most of them are hacked down, and if they're not dead, are going to be in desperate need of healing. So that is cool. But then 4 more of these Chamal hunters show up, and it's like, crap. And that's when, if the entrance of Tool in the first book wasn't awesome enough, the entrance of the freaking Talan Imas gathering showing up in this moment is like one of the most exciting things that have happened. And so there's 4 more. They show up and they rip them down. And they go to talk to a Kovian. And who is it? But it is our prologue boy, Branchel, who was our favorite bonecaster, or whatever. I guess maybe our second favorite bonecaster from the prologue. So this is the gathering is finally here. I'm glad that we don't have to wait till the end of the book to get to these guys, because I was so excited to get to this. Now, this just blows their mind, or it blows the mind of people who are looking at this gathering of something like 14,000. I might not be getting that exactly right, but I believe it was 14,000 of these Talan Imas. And that's not even all of them. That's just the group that is in that area kind of scouting around and on their way back to what's going on. So this Pran is talking to a Kovian, and we get a little bit of insight on the Panian Domin and maybe who they are and what's going on. When Ikovian mentions the Panian Domin, it's like all of these thousands of Talan Imas heard the word Panian, and they all turn. And that's when we find that the word Panian is a Jagat word, a Jagat name. And it is bizarre that if it's bizarre that it's all happening now, especially that the Kachane guys that are being controlled by them, who are supposed to be way ancient, that they are here. Which, did they dig them up? Are they the way they used to be at all? Are they just a bastardized version of what they are? But it's strange, but so cool. Then we go to perhaps my very favorite squad in the entire books. It is Lady Envy, her wolf, her doggo, which, oh my gosh, this dog. We get to Tool and Talk and the Segula. There is not one person in that group that I don't think is just awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. And if this chapter, there is so much that goes on in this chapter. I know this is probably going to be a longer one than I expected. I keep saying that I'm going to try to make it short, but I might have to save those just for the kind of a chapter summary or a part summary after I've gone through all these chapters, because I think it's just awesome. Now, Talk is kind of talking to himself. He has that sort of tendency, and he's also talking to this wolf while Lady Envy and Doggo are off doing some things. And this wolf and Talk clearly share some similarities with the one eye. Talk asks, like, why are you even here? Aren't you supposed to be extinct? He's one of these eye wolves that are supposed to be totally gone. And he basically gets warped into the memories, kind of Vulcan mind melded into the wolf. I did not expect that. And he sees through the eye to a time where he was rescued by an elder god who was warm and comforting. He goes back to this time when he was from the prologue, 300,000 years back when he was a pup. And he was one of these animals that were stuck in this mud and unable to get out. And then this warm presence, this elder god showed up, or elder goddess showed up and helped her out, helped this pup out, his ball jag. And really, it's amazing because at this moment as well, we feel for the pup, and she promises the pup, I think it was an elder goddess, right? Anyway, she promises the pup a companion way, way, way in the future. And talk about waiting a long time for that promise to be fulfilled. And I love that even though Talk is kind of having this thing where he's experiencing this with the wolf, experiencing these memories. Again, memories. It's not just the memories themselves. He's experiencing the emotion that is tied with it. Even though it is not from Talk's experience, he's experiencing what this wolf experienced in that way. So in a way, it's almost like they are being fused, kind of like what happened we've seen that with Sorry, we've seen that with Silver Fox, and it's like he's having this joined kind of experience, at least temporarily. Now he wakes up from that and thinks, well, what the heck was that? And notices or realizes that this wolf is wanting something, but not from Talk necessarily, but from Tool. He's been waiting for the arrival of Tool, which I kind of threw me off because I still think the companion is not Tool, right? The companion that he's linked to is Talk. Talk is at the center of this, as awesome as Tool is. Now, Tool recognizes, and it's so awesome. I love Tool, and I will only love him more and more. Talk and Tool, I'll just say this now, this little friendship that they are having is setting me up to being crushed and having my heart stomped on. I don't like where this is going. I'm just kind of seeing the way the winds are blowing. I love these two. I love these two. But Tool recognizes that something happened between Talk and the wolf. Talk's like, I have no idea what that was. But yeah, something happened. It was a binding, this sharing of memories and emotions, this vision connection. And it was really like having something deeper knit together with the wolf. This earns Talk a new name from Tool. And I can't remember exactly what that name is. Doesn't matter. If you've read the book, you probably know. Baljag, the wolf, is the last of her kind, and yet has chosen Talk, which is something to be excited about. I love animal companions. As someone who grew up with puppies and dogs, I grew up kind of out of town, so we had an acreage with puppies and dogs, and they were just my favorite thing. So this is something where I'm just getting the waterworks ready. Truly. Now, Talk gets pulled into this other vision, and this one's a little bit more confusing to me, but I think I have at least some of the basic points to it. I don't know if I'm reading it correctly. So just a grain of salt there. We get pulled into the mind of Treach. Remember, Treach is this ancient kind of hunter person who the torques that Picker has from Munnig are supposed to be from one of Treach's prey. And we also remember Quickben says that Treach has been this animal that hasn't had his own kind of human identity as a part of him for a long, long time. He has forgotten that, almost as if he has been subject to chaos or just subject to the passage of centuries and millennia. And so he's getting this kind of vision through Treach, which I don't think that means that this Baljag is Treach. At first, I kind of wondered that, but how interesting also that they both lose an eye, this Talk and Baljag, and that gives them this extra sight to see things that they would not otherwise see. That's, we've seen that kind of trope with samurais that have the blindfolds and stuff, and yet they see and da-da-da-da. But this is a really cool version of that. We get through this vision that, remember the Otatarl sword, that kind of was Lassine's sword that negates magic. The Otatarl that's making all these, that Felicin was sent to, and all these sorcerers were sent to mine, and it would just cause them to go crazy, and Haboric was there to kind of research that stuff. We wanted to stay and research it. We find that used to be at a part where a warren was ripped apart on 7 cities, and it covered the area in molten stone. I wonder what this was going to be. And it cooled, and now it is this Otatarl magic negating crap. Or whatever. It's probably not a good noun for that, but it's this crap. Anyway, Talk through Treach also remembers a time when he was mercilessly hunted by the Talan Imas. And it's so amazing because these memories are pushing us towards this culmination in this book that is clearly going to have this decision that is probably going to have to be made, independent of the memories that would, taking into account the memories of things past, to make this hard decision that may be an unpopular one. And also, we see that in the admonition of the Elder Goddess in the prologue, who is telling that we should live above this paranoia and fear and hate and mistrust, and she's going to do something. She's going to live in a way that's higher. So I believe that Talk is the one who is going to most represent this. I think it's in a lot of these people, but I'm most interested in how Talk is going to represent that, especially because unless he just dies on me, and I'm going to be very unhappy. But whatever. So we see another memory where this Treach, he's pulled into this other more current memory, and Treach more in the north. I believe this is happening like right around this time. He had been this beast. He was fighting these Kamal or Chamal hunter things, and got his butt kicked. He did pretty well, but he gets his butt kicked, and he's laying in his blood, about to die. And that's like when he gets kick-started into his own kind of Treach self again, right? So for centuries, he's been this beast. He had forgotten himself, and just in this last moment, he's remembering himself. And that's when this lady with this panther skin shows up. Comforting experience, and helps him out. I don't know if this is the same one from before. I don't think this is. I thought this was either... I don't know who saved him from the mud. If you know that, maybe leave it in the comments if that's something that I should know by now. It's either one of these elder goddesses or Lady Envy, or who knows, or it's this lady that shows up here. I don't know, but she shows up. She has this comforting experience. She's like, "Hey, you did a good job, buddy. Good for you. You almost had him. You had them all broken down, and basically all I had to do was just finish them off. It's like opening the jar of pickles. Yeah, you loosened it up for me. I just had to do a little bit." And he knows that that's not true. He knows that this lady basically single-handedly just took him out. And is like, "Well, thanks for doing that. You saved me, I guess, but I am just about to die." And I like that she says, "Well, I wouldn't be too sure about that. The gods are meddling. They are intervening in what is happening." I wish there was more of this Opon stuff. I love that from the first book, but we haven't really seen that going on here. But anyway, the gods are intervening. And now that he is he's remembered some of his old self, she also is speaking to him in the language of the First Empire, which I don't know if that's what kind of sparked him to remember or really what this was, but that is really, really cool. Now, let's go to... Or actually, there's a little bit more here. We have this image or this explanation of one of Treach's buddies, who is also this Tiger of Summer. I don't think that's Treach. I think this Tiger of Summer is his buddy, right? An old friend. And that means that both of these guys are these divers from Deadhouse Gates. They're these people that can kind of turn into, soul change or shapeshift. I might be getting that totally wrong, but I'm super in, even if I'm getting it totally wrong. But before ending this scene, she knows, this lady who has come, she knows that a new war has begun. It has taken seed. It has taken root. It may take a while to really kind of bear that fruit, where I guess I wouldn't call it fruit because that would mean something good, but really bear its claws, I guess, and when it is really going to come to the forefront. And then the Talk gets slapped and basically gets pulled out of that vision. He tells Talk that he saw the death of, or he tells Tool that he saw kind of when Treach was about to die, and when He just tells him all this. And he knows that somebody, this same lady, is on her way to them now. This same lady that helped Treach, this panther-skinned lady, is on her way now. And who is it but a person we've been waiting for since the prologue, wondering what's up with her? It's Tool's sister, which I got so excited. Connections are being remade, and that's a wonderful thing. And while you can see this kind of conflict between these two, they have this history, and she recognizes Talk. Not that she's seen Talk, but she saw Talk within the eyes of when she was talking to either Treach or talking to a young pup, Bulljag. So she was able to even kind of perceive this other person, and she perceives that it was Talk looking through. So I think that is so cool. Now, we have this Bonecaster, who is one of the, she kind of split apart from the clans. And we know that now Tool is split apart. Oh, yes. And I also forgot, in this chapter, we also get what Tool's name means. This Onos Tulan means. It means flawed flint, which pure flint would have all the grains moving in one direction. But a flawed flint would have this one, it would go another way. So he is quickly becoming my favorite character. I think right now he would be, if I had to say. He had the coolest entrance of anyone in the series, I would say. But he is this flawed flint who is going against the grain, which I think really this sister is the one who started it. In my perception, she's the one who started this flawed flint thing where she's going, choosing another path. But now it is also Tool, and he is walking without a clan. He travels his own. He considers that something of a crime that he is doing. He is unlike others, and it's as he is talking with Talk, that's when he's kind of like bloop. Talk is pulled into this vision of Treach. So I did forget about that. Now we get to where Tool's sister is here. They have this kind of tension between them. It is clear that they even mention that they have never walked the same paths as each other, and that there is this kind of thing that is kind of maybe always going to be between them. But she is there. She is there to right an old wrong from long ago. I don't know if that specifically means the time when she dumped 2 kids into some jacket, which probably has them still screaming for all eternity. I don't know if it's that she's trying to right. That's what I think. She wants to release people from the Panian embrace, and I think she uses that word as well. And from their talk, Tool does mention, once they're about to part ways again here, but he does put it out there that, even though he was angry and harbored some serious kind of a grudge with his sister about her choices and things, that is an anger from a long time ago, from his memories, and maybe is not really a part of what he is feeling now, truly inside. And I love Tool. His anger that he once felt, that feeling that they don't really walk in step, that is an old anger, born of his memories. And perhaps it can be remedied. I love Tool. And not only that, but this is actually done through some probing from Talk. Talk is the one that kind of gets Tool to this point. So far, Talk has just been like the seventh wheel of this operation. Obviously, we've gotten things through his perspective, so we didn't think he was useless, but he's not like Lady Envy. He doesn't have this power to boil people at the flick of his wrist. He's not one of the Segula who can take on these dino hunters, one of these baddest swordsmen on all the continents around. He's not able to crumble down into dust and do some awesome stuff. He's just Talk, and he has one eye. And he can do some cool stuff with that one eye, it sounds like, but he's just Talk. But I do love that he's able to reach Tool. And it's cool because they are kind of becoming friends of sorts. Now, we get to a scene with Lady Envy, and she has Gareth, her pup. It's in this city or town, a trader city that's just kind of on the coast, and it has just gone through this insane slaughter. About 10 days past, something just wild has happened. And remember, this is on their way really into the Panian Domain's territory. About 30,000 dead. And just blood running through the gutters and all this terrible stuff. And there's this shack within the city. And again, they're walking. There's all this. It's really a gory, awful scene. And Gareth is taking Lady Envy right to this shack that is acting almost like a temple or an altar. And who else could it be? Especially when we know that there's all this blood involved, which is so strange that we would have this character that has all this blood involved. And that's kind of a big part of what gives him influence and power. It is Krull, the elder god, who has lost all of his followers and things, or that was a part of his big curse. But he has summoned Lady Envy to talk about this situation. And we finally get kind of the opposite. We finally get one of these other forces and what he's up to against the crippled god and the Panian Domain. And I'm so excited about this. He lets her know that for this city, the slaughter came from servants of the crippled god that arrived from the sea. Which, okay. I don't know I think that means the Panian Domain just showed up. But I don't think this is talking necessarily exactly about them specifically. But she's like, oh, great, another situation to deal with. And it's directly revealed that she wants to use the Segula, especially Mok, to carve their way right into the Panian seer's throne room and cut him down. And I love this because this was a part of Krull's plan, I believe, that he wanted these awesome Segula people on his side to kind of take the front, kind of cause this southern front, this southern battle that the Panian seer needs to deal with. And they could have had a few hundred 11th level initiates like Senu. That would have been fine. But he's like, whoa. They sent Mok the Third, who sounds like Mok the Third could take out a bunch of these 11th initiates. So he's like this rocket-fueled level 9,000 just Segula on steroids. More than that. Which is awesome. He's a cheat code Segula. And at the core of the crippled god's motives, according to Envy, it's not necessarily as much vengeance against the sorcerers and things. Remember, he's trying to attack sorcery and get rid of the stuff that once ripped him apart. But he is just, there's really just power and a lust for power at the core of it. We find in this chapter that she defied the summons for the chaining of the crippled god, and Krull is not going to look past that a second time. He kind of guilts her into some things. But we also get some serious information about the sorcery of this world, about the Warrens, and that every time people draw on their Warren, they are actually drawing upon Krull's blood. And it is tied to his own eternal soul. So it's almost like, it seems like it's kind of tearing him apart. But he has given this as a source for people to draw upon. And I think that probably is something willingly given, but I'm not sure. But since they are doing that, he's like, people better be grateful for that. And that includes you, Lady Envy. Essential to these Warrens that are tied to Krull are the Warrens of darkness, I think, specifically, and the Warren of dragons, which we haven't really seen much with that, except for in the first book we had the dragons. And so she's kind of going to... he's kind of going to guilt her a little bit here and be like, well, you are free to do what you want, but I would advise that you take my counsel. You do what you want. I know you are against authority, but you work for me. And she says, well, who else knows about the Warrens and that this is going on, that it is tied to you? He's like, a few people, Animander Rake, Draconis, a few others. And he says, and this is cool, like everything hangs at the balance in the mortal world right now. You are free to choose what you want, but everything is hanging at the balance. And everything that is happening with the Panian threat, as we have found through Quickban, is just the tip of the iceberg. The Panian Domain is just one tool of many tools of what's going on Burn within this whole world. And I can't wait. I don't know if we're just going to be on these two continents this whole series. I would be fine with that, but I'm excited to see what else happens, because isn't there the third continent, which is kind of more the Malazan Unta or whatever? It's like the core of the Malazan Empire where Lysine rules from. Anyway, she has some decisions to make. She is to go within the center of the Panian Domain, and she can either cut the knot and kind of destroy the whole area, level it, or she can loosen the knot and free those who have been bound there, bound to this crazy thing going on for 300,000 years. And the goal, as I see it, which I love, the goal as I see it, all revolves around Tok the Younger specifically being brought to the heart of the Panian Domain. He's the key. Which, it's like, how many chosen ones can you get? At the top of my head, it's like, now he's one, Silver Fox is kind of one, Captain Perrin is one. Sounds like Felicen has her thing. It sounds like even Tavor has her thing. Quickban's more of like this Dumbledore kind of Gandalf situation, but like how many? And I know I missed some, but how many of these chosen one types can we have? They all have this role to fill. Caruli has this, Anyway, we'll get to that. And so he's the key. And I love when Kroll says in closing, basically, take care of him, lady. The scarred and flawed one. The scarred and the flawed are what the crippled God seeks in his servants. That's when he can kind of really establish his influence. I mean, if you're a biblical kind of person, you can kind of see that sort of theme. When someone is most down, that's when like the silver tongue of the adversary of Satan or whoever would be most influential, and you can kind of see that here. So it's like, be careful with him. He is flawed, he is down, and that's when he's most vulnerable. And I love that. He's going to be going through some stuff. But there's also something deeper within Talk to be reawakened, and I cannot wait. There's a warning to her not to use to not open up her warren within the influence of the Panian domain, because there's this poison. It can infect all these warrens and basically cause people to go nuts. Cruel's blood is poisoned within this territory. So just be careful with that. But it sounds like Talk is Cruel's really, or Krull's shaved knuckle, so to speak. Really his loaded dice in all this. And he's going to have to go through some stuff. Now, before going back, we get a little bit of Lady Envy's personality. After all this, she talks to her pup, says, well, let's go back now, and let's wake up. Let's do something funny and wake up Mock with a kiss. I wonder what he's going to think about this. Leaving a red lip mark on his mask, which seems like something you're not supposed to do. I don't know if that'll make him a fourth. That's what she kind of is wondering. I think she thinks it's funny. It's probably a major no-no, but I just love that. I think this lady's hilarious. Now, we're almost at the end of this chapter, so let's breeze through some of this. This has been a long one, and I promise the next ones won't be so long. We get back to Ikovian and his hunts that they are doing, and they are getting... they're following along, and I think there's 5 more of these dino hunter things, and they crest this area, and there are these undead beast wolves that show up. I believe it's at this part. It's definitely in this chapter. They show up, they rip these things apart. None of them take even an injury, and they are these undead versions of the Eye. Of Baljag, basically. So Baljag, Baljag himself is a major hunter. What happens when you have thousands of these? And according to Pran, they are these kind of corrupted versions of what these noble beasts of what they once were. And Ikovian's like, wow, these are incredible. But he says they are not. They're not what they used to be. We did this to them. They became that because of the ritual that they did. Now they run into Gruntl's group, or it's either that or more of the. Yeah, I believe that's right. They run into Gruntl's group, which has Beauchelane and Corball and the 3 Barghasts. We hear that one of the Barghast trio has died, and one of the humans has died, which we know later on in, I believe, just this chapter, or maybe in the next couple chapters, that was Harlow. So at the end of the 6th chapter, at the end of part 1, it is this gut-wrenching thing that will kind of weigh on Gruntl, and I'm just going to say it here, like, it's this amazing thing where he's feeling so angry about this and sad about this, and is being told, by Buke. I'm just kind of skipping ahead, so sorry about that, but I want to speak freely. He's saying, don't feel this way. It's a loss, but it's only a tragedy if you don't make something out of this. We know that Buke kind of turned some things around with his tragedy. Now it's time for Gruntle to hopefully do the same. We get Corbel Broach, who's basically salivating at the sight of the Talani mass and the beast undead eye, the wolves or whatever they are. And he is salivating about it because they have been created by the greatest necromantic ritual ever. And he speaks of them almost like he speaks of the four-legged pups. He kind of disrespects them, saying that they are just animals and just there to serve them. And Pran's like, don't watch it. Watch it. Obviously, Pran has some deep feelings about this. And Pran backhands him, backhands Corbel across the room, sort of thing, for talking to him, and says Corbel lacks manners. We get another very small scene where we see that there's so many that had been injured horrifically by the Kachane hunters, and now most of them are in this deep sleep where they are being force healed by the Destriant, this gray sword, high-seated priest of Fenner. And what was his name again? Starting with the K. Might as well say that, so just keep things. Carnatus. How long he can keep that up, it sounds like this really takes a lot out of him, but he's doing that, and I think Gruntle has also taken part in being healed by that. They are going to go to the city and to Kapistan, but the Talani mask and the Talan Eye are mostly going to remain hidden, except for a few of these Talan Eye, which I think are going to accompany them to kind of raise some eyebrows and things like that. Now this is a crazy chapter. There's a lot that happens. We get to the prince, who's still arguing with the masked council over everything. The prince tells his mortal sword that he needs leverage to really get things moving along. And he soon finds that in this 14,000 Talani mass. Even though the Talan aren't their allies, and it isn't their war, there may be ways of kind of getting them on board, at least temporarily, with this threat that's going on. We find also an important note, which I found interesting, that the Panian seer is a mortal human, an old man. And then we get this weird tangent ending of the chapter where we have, who was it that was even, who was it was the Mortal Sword. Let's get his name again. Sorry, I'm terrible with these names so far. We just found, this is all in the first chapter of knowing these guys. Brucalain, the Mortal Sword, kind of the commander of the Grey Swords. He gets a visit from none other but a herald of Hood. So the herald of the Death Warren has come to visit the Mortal Sword of Fenner with some warnings and things. And they usually don't come with, if you're the herald of Hood, you probably don't come with super cheery stuff to say, since that's the Warren of Death. But yeah, he comes and he's like, you guys got to get out of here. This city is doomed. And I want to just also say that this Warren, this herald that comes, his name is Gethel. Yes, Jethel or Gethel. And he is green and he has tusks. He's a Jagged. So he is working for Hood. And he comes with an offer from Hood that says, hey, all of you, why don't you just step into Hood's warren, this warren of death, to get away? We'll give you safe passage. And that seems like a great idea. Great idea. Just deny Fenner and all these different areas, and let's just jump into this warren of Hood. This warren that everyone's terrified of. Sounds great. He says, you would be so honored to do this. We would honor you with this opportunity, with this privilege. Bruchalane gives his answer by slashing his broadsword across this Gethel Jagged Herald boy's face. And the Herald's not too happy about that. 3 Talan Mass show up. And remember, their whole goal has been for a long time hunting down the Jagged in whatever continent or place they go to. And the Herald's like, stay out of this. This isn't your fight. And would you dare strike or challenge a servant of Hood? And these Talan Mass respond with, you ask your lord, does he dare to challenge us? It's cold. And Gethel is dragged back out where his warren snaps shut behind him. The Talan Mass kind of like the style that Bruchalane, how he told him kind of told the Jagged Hood, the Herald, where to stick his offer. Definitely won him some points. And the very last scene, we have Gruntle finally waking up from that first attack at the end of the first part of the 6th chapter. And this is where he hears the awful news of what happened and basically curses out his employer, Karuli. And I think now Gruntle is frustrated and just wants to go home at whatever opportunity he can. Hopefully it's not too late. And that's the end of chapter 7. I hope you found this as interesting as I have. If this is your first read through and you've found this, let me know. If you have read this book before and are just looking to see what reactions people have, let me know. And I will see you on the next one.